It's now a real pleasure to make the next introduction. Subhashini Raj has actively sought and participated in volunteer community and research projects in the United States and internationally. She came to the Master of Urban and Regional Planning Department as a Fulbright scholar from Fiji. She's been involved with the study of U.S. Institutes for Student Leaders on global environmental issues in the East-West Center. She's the founder and co-coordinator of 350 Pacific in organizing, acquiring funds, and facilitating the Pacifica Climate Leadership Workshop and lobbying for small island developing states at the United Nations negotiations. Locally, Subhashini has engaged her research interests in food security and climate change through the Food Systems Planning and Health Communities Lab at the School of Architecture and Planning, among other organizations. Subhashini will enter the PhD in Urban and Regional Planning this fall as a member of our first class in that program, and will study food systems planning. When she applied for a Fulbright scholarship, there was one reference letter in a field of very positive letters that stood out above the norm. Imagine faculty reviewing hundreds of letters from all over the place, each one telling us how great the student applicants are. Then imagine this letter: Dear Fulbright Committee, this is a full-throated, no-holds-barred recommendation of Subhashini Raj from Fiji. I've been running 350.org since its inception 3 years ago. It's the first big global grassroots climate change campaign. In the fall of 2009, we coordinated 5,200 simultaneous actions in 181 countries, what CNN called the most widespread day of political action in the planet's history. And we took the largest delegation to the Copenhagen conference, 350 young people from around the world. So let me say, they were all great, but Subhashini is really something else. She's a born leader, whip-smart, quietly charismatic, and one of those people who are able to bring out the best in them around them, those around them. She's at ease in foreign situations. Denmark, in case you missed it, is a long way from Fiji in every sense. And with all kinds of people, right up to foreign ministers. And she's clearly committed to rational, strong action to protect the future. She just ran the Pacific-wide workshop on climate issues for us, and it went incredibly well. Developing a whole new crop of leaders, she's passing it on. I also teach at Middlebury College in Vermont, and let me just say, she'd be near the head of the class here too. You will like her enormously, and you will learn a lot from her. Sincerely, Bill McKibben. You won't be surprised after reviewing that letter in an application package that there was no debate whatsoever on the admission of this student. We admitted her, and she has gone on to be at the top of her graduating class and is now indeed in the first class of our highly competitive new PhD program. Please welcome Subhashini to the platform, and she will introduce our commencement speaker. Subhashini.
Thank you, Dean Shipley. I had actually never read the recommendation letter Bill wrote, so thank you, Bill. Now to introduce the man himself. There's a duality to Bill McKibben that often gets lost in his very public persona. He is the author of a dozen books on the environment and many more essays and pieces for the popular press. His first book, The End of Nature, published in 1989, was heralded as the first book for the general audience on climate change. Bill was ahead of his time then and has always been a visionary. A Schumann Distinguished Scholar at Middlebury College, board member of Grist magazine, and an awardee of many prestigious fellowships, including the Guggenheim and Lyndhurst. The list can go on if you Google him. It really does. Bill is also a name synonymous with the growing grassroots climate movement. And the truth is, those who work with him will describe him as the reluctant leader. Bill never asked to be an activist. Circumstances thrust that role upon him. Getting arrested on Capitol Hill was not part of the career path he quite had in mind. The journey to founding 350.org, the grassroots climate organization, started with his students at Millbury. They told me they wanted to move to Montana and shut down coal plants, but really they just wanted to continue to work together and didn't know how to do that after graduation. Bill, as their mentor, helped and supported them transition into professional life to what was to become 350.org. So instead of moving to Montana, they built a global climate movement instead with Bill. The first Global Day of Action was held in 2009, organized by 350.org, and championed by local organizers like myself on the ground, where over 5,000 actions took place in 181 countries. This wasn't by some UN designation that brought people together. This was purely people mobilizing around an idea, a vision, and hope for real change. It gave a voice to the vulnerable and to those that are usually out of sight and out of your minds, and it helped me find mine. Bill understands the need for social and environmental justice. He understands that we need to bring stakeholders together, much like urban planners do, that we need everyone in on this fight. I have watched him debate and enamor people with facts. I have seen his work affect and empower so many. And this is because he manages to communicate this message with an almost poetic voice and simplicity that we can all understand. And as you listen to Bill speak today, you will realize that this ability is also something very ordinary and very human. But he is still a rock star. I have known Bill McKibben for about 4 years now. He is one of the reasons why I stand before you today. I went back and looked at emails I have exchanged with him over the years, trying to find some wisdom that he gave to me once that I can share today. Instead, I found a note that he sent to me as I lay in a hospital bed, recovering from surgery. He told me, "Get well quick, because we need you in fighting shape." And that is the other side to Bill McKibben, the writer and scholar extraordinaire, and a reluctant leader who inspires an entire movement of people across the planet because of his humanness, humility, and honesty. In 5 minutes, I cannot begin to do justice to Bill's lifetime of work and achievements. So I will stop so Bill can do what he does best, inspire our generation with words of advice that hopefully will provide guidance to where life takes us all next. But first, I would ask that Dean Shibley and Bill McKibben come to the podium for the presentation of the Dean's Medal.
Found it. Thank you, Subhashini, for that inspiring introduction. We are doubly fortunate today. We get to hear from one of the most important environmental leaders in the United States, if not the world, and witness the direct influence of his work through Subhashini, one of the most accomplished students and passionate scholars in our Food Systems and Climate Action Planning Lab. Indeed, Subhashini is a testament to the difference Bill McKibben makes every day through a global movement to address the climate crisis. Through devoted efforts to teach the world about the challenges we face today, through countless demonstrations, rallies, and creative actions around the globe, Bill is influencing the leaders of today and inspiring the leaders of tomorrow to create a more sustainable world. It is in recognition of this lifetime achievement that we are honored today to present Bill McKibben with this year's Dean's Medal. Today, we recognize his tireless work to advance a more sustainable world through innovative research and teaching, path-setting leadership, and a lifetime of selfless actions to improve our world. Through the Dean's Medal, we recognize individuals for their extraordinary service and accomplishments in planning, architecture, or environmental design, and acknowledge the powerful role these allied fields play in supporting the ability for all of us to live life well on an increasingly urbanized planet. The medal recognizes these accomplishments that include distinctive academic and pedagogical contributions, outstanding scholarly, artistic, creative, or design activity, innovative and impactful research attainments, leadership, and a distinguished lifetime career achievements of far-reaching impact. Or major acts that develop, improve, and sustain the Buffalo School, our region, or the world. This award is the highest honor bestowed at the School of Architecture and Planning. Some years ago, Bill, then Dean Harold Cohen, gave the Dean's Medal to R. Buckminster Fuller at our commencement. Legend has it the medal was gold. I think it's legend. It's hard to know for sure. Fuller was so moved and frankly full of himself that he then spoke for 3 hours. So brace yourselves. Bill, this medal is not gold, and you have about 20 minutes. But the school is very proud to acknowledge your scholarship. To understand the mission you have is the fundamental mission of the enterprise of planning and architecture. And would that we could share just a little of the success through our students that you have experienced through the work you do in the world. Would you please come forward to receive the medal?
Thank you so much, Dean Shibley, and thank you so much, Subhashini, for that wonderful introduction. And I'm very glad that you did a good job when you got here, so that you know my recommendation was not in vain. Look, I'm not going to speak for 3 hours. I might not even speak for 20 minutes, but there is, the commencement address is a kind of, it's a kind of landmark in your education. For a very long time now, back almost to kindergarten, you've been expected to sit still and listen to old people tell you things. And just a few minutes from now, that'll all be over. I'm the last obstacle between you and your diploma. And there is a kind of sadistic side that makes you want to drag it out just to sort of see how well. The other problem with having me here to speak to you is that commencement should be an entirely celebratory event. Y'all have done amazing things and come a very long ways, and you're at a moment of epic promise. And so it may not be absolutely wise to invite to speak to you someone whose most well-known book has the cheerful title, The End of Nature. I'll try to end on an upbeat note. But let me begin by saying that the day on which you graduate will actually be a day, for more reasons than your graduation, that this planet long remembers. If you go to the island, the big island of Hawaii, and if you drive inland from the resorts at Kona onto the dirt road that bisects that island, at a certain point you'll come to an intersection, and there's another, this time very primitive dirt road leading up onto the slopes of Mauna Loa, the great volcano, the largest volcano in the islands. And as you climb about halfway up that slope, you come to a Quonset hut that marks a scientific field station, and therein sits what's almost certainly the most important scientific instrument in the planet's history. It's been there since 1959, when scientists first grew concerned that our constant combustion of coal and gas and oil was putting enough carbon into the atmosphere to perhaps begin a heating of this earth. And when they put that rather simple instrument up, the last time I was there, it was still running on vacuum tubes. When they put that rather simple instrument up, the atmospheric concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere was about 315 parts per million, already slightly elevated from before the Industrial Revolution. But that curve of rising carbon has been going up ever since. And about 3 hours ago, it ticked past for the first time 400 parts per million. We're in territory now that hasn't been seen for about 5 million years on this planet. It's a grim landmark on a road that's already seen enormous damage from the heating that we've caused so far. So far, collectively, human beings have raised the temperature of the Earth about 1 degree. And that's been enough to accomplish remarkable things. 80% of the summer sea ice in the Arctic is gone now. If you look down at our planet from outer space, it looks profoundly different than it did when Neil Armstrong stood on the moon. If you go to the ocean and stick a pH strip into the water any place on the planet, it comes out a different color than it would have 40 years ago. The ocean's 30% more acidic as the result of the changes in the chemistry of seawater as it absorbs carbon from the atmosphere. Here on land, because warm air holds more water vapor than cold, the atmosphere is about 5% moister on average, an enormous change, one that loads the dice for drought and for torrential downpour. Those are the facts so far of this world. Everybody in this room, the most important thing that happened in your lifetime was the exit of our planet from what scientists called the Holocene, the 10,000-year period of benign climatic stability that underwrote the rise of human civilization. Now we're in some new epic. It has as yet no name, and the question is how far into it we will go. The same scientists who told us that we would raise the temperature 1 degree now tell us that unless we get off coal and gas and oil far more quickly than any government currently intends, that temperature will rise 4 or 5 degrees before your careers are over. And if that happens, there is no reason to think that we can carry out civilizations of the kind that we imagine. Those of us here in the Empire State looking across this state at its biggest city got some small sense of that last October when the storm with the lowest barometric pressure ever recorded north of Cape Hatteras, the storm with the largest wind field ever measured from a satellite, when that storm drove the Atlantic Ocean into the New York City subway system, if you had any doubts about the vulnerability of our technological civilization to the new and souped up nature we are creating, that should have ended them. And so, as you graduate, you enter a world that will need, in a way that perhaps it didn't before, all the professional skill that you can bring to it. Your training is now not just an end to a profitable and rewarding career, but something that our society badly needs. Think about the role that planners now must take on as they figure out how to adapt a physical society that was built for the Holocene into one that can cope with the change that we've already seen, the degree rise in temperature that leads, for instance, to rainfall at levels that we've never seen before. That calls for an entire recalculation of how we design cities, towns, buildings. It calls for playing inspired defense against what are increasingly difficult elements to deal with. But we also need you playing inspired offense. Think of the changes that we need to make if we're going to be able to keep that temperature from rising any more than we have to. It was beautiful to come in today and see the solar panels, this new array, beautifully arrayed out on the entrance here, a work of art as well as engineering, and a good reminder of the direction in which we have so far basically failed to go in our society, but which we need to go with great speed, and which we can go if you apply your skills. We know we can go there because we have a few examples around the world. Germany the one country that's taken this crisis with the seriousness that it deserves, that really set its mind on transformation, Germany, there were days last summer when it generated more than half the power it consumed from solar panels within its borders. That's a remarkable thing. It's a demonstration of what is possible. Because, of course, Germany is not exactly the sunniest place on the whole planet. Munich is north of Montreal. Think what a country could do if it had, say, Florida and Texas and Arizona and New Mexico and California to call on. Think what you'll be able to do if you get to work. At the moment, there are more solar panels in Bavaria than there are in the United States, okay? Which gives you plenty of room to push this system all the time. And I have no doubt, given your training here, that you are more than up to the task. But it will call, if we're going to make this transition, not just, or perhaps even primarily, on your professional skill. We also need to call on your skills as citizens. One of the things that comes with graduation, it's in our society as close as we have as a kind of rite of passage into the next stage of your life. A kind of acknowledgement that you are fully adult now, leaving behind some of the bubble that education provides and moving, we hope, forcefully and powerfully into the larger world. So we celebrate your professional acumen, but we desperately need your civic engagement. And I can testify how important that engagement is. When we started 350.org 5 years ago, there was no movement about climate change in this country or in this world. There was just the belief, I think, among most people that our leaders would do something because the scientists had told them that we were facing the greatest crisis we'd ever faced. But I'd watched for 20 years as nothing happened, as we had a perfect, in Washington, 2-decade bipartisan record of accomplishing nothing. And so we decided that we needed a movement, that we needed people rising up, that we would never be able to outspend the fossil fuel industry, which has a deep and vested stake in making sure nothing ever changes. Since we couldn't outspend them, we would need to find other currencies to work in. If we can push along from that slide, I don't know why that slide is up there, but if we can, do I have control of these slides? Let me see if I do. I see a computer down here. Let's see if it. There we go. Better yet. Put that right there. There you go. When we started, as Subhashini said, we asked people all over the world to join us, and they did. Here are what citizens look like in thousands and thousands and thousands of places around the world. People exercising their wit and their love for the planet. Religious leaders in that picture. People coming together across difficult lines. That's Jordan and Palestine and Israel. People all over the planet. Those are our brothers and sisters in the Maldives, a country like Fiji threatened by the quick rise of the ocean. That's their student government association meeting in the lagoon. Everybody in that zero is in full black burqa to us. They do not look like members of the Sierra Club, but in fact their hearts are in the same place, thinking about the future, and on and on and on. And I can show you literally thousands of these pictures because we've had 20,000 demonstrations in every country on earth except North Korea. And to me, they are absolutely beautiful to look at, and they are the definition of what citizens are and who they are and what they mean. It doesn't happen unless you make it happen. Nothing important happens automatically or easily, especially when there are vested interests at stake. Some of the time, the action that you have to take is dramatic. And I'll show you a few pictures of that. Okay? It wasn't a great deal of fun to get to spend 3 days in Central Cell Block in D.C. protesting this proposed Keystone Pipeline, but it wasn't the end of the world either, you know. The end of the world is the end of the world, and that's why we do what we do. Most of the time, the things that we need you to do are more prosaic, public hearings and committee meetings and letter writing and all equally crucial. All involving setting aside your own particular interests and acting instead in the common good. And at a time when we have never needed that more than we need it right now. At the moment, vested interest is winning this fight. The temperature is going up. More carbon is pouring into the atmosphere every day. But it is possible for us to rally, and it is necessary for us to rally because we are in the place where we can make a difference. There's one picture here I want to show you two pictures. This is one for planners to think about. Those people live in the part of Pakistan that in 2010 saw the greatest rainfall they'd ever recorded. The Indus River covered 1/4 of that country, and 20 million people were forced from their homes. That's the kind of future that we face everywhere unless we act. This may have been the smallest demonstration almost we've ever sponsored. It's just 6 or 7 kids standing in a street in Haiti that's turned into a little dirty river. For me, it's important because of what those signs say that the 2 children are holding. Your actions affect me, and they do. More people died in Haiti from Hurricane Sandy than died in New York, you know. Your actions affect me, but it doesn't work the other way around. There's nothing that they can do to significantly change the outcome of this story. They don't burn enough fossil fuel that if they stopped burning it, it would make a difference. They do not have important companies close to home to protest, nor centers of government power that they can turn to. They have only us and the hope that we will rise to the moral and practical challenge that they present to us. My guess is that given the pace with which the climate is changing, my guess is that this crisis will be one of the central texts of your life. And in fact, a final exam far more important than the exams you've taken in the weeks just past. A test both of your skill and of your character. And I know that, like my friend Subhashini, you're completely capable of rising to this test. In fact, I have no doubt whatsoever that you will pass that test, and that as you do, you will do this tired and overheated planet an enormous amount of good. Congratulations on your graduation here today, and welcome now into the real fight for the future. Thank you.
See if we can avoid stepping on the computer. Thank you, Bill, for that inspiring address to our graduates.